Hey, this is Scott, and today I'm just going to run through the physical buttons and switches on the Godox Xpro C flash trigger, as well as the on-screen layout, functions, and menus. If you haven't seen my overall review of this, be sure to check out the link on screen now or down in the description below. So starting from the most boring and working our way up, we have the battery door on the bottom, which just slides out like this. The hot shoe connection, which is a plastic screw type similar to the X1T but not identical. On the left side, under this little flap, we have a USB-C port for updating firmware and a 2.5mm sync cord jack. On the right side, there are two switches, one to turn the AF assist beam on and off, and the other is the main power switch. Now to the exciting part, all these new buttons on the top. Starting from the top left, we have these 5 buttons which let you choose and make adjustments to individual groups, which are all displayed on this nice big screen. And then you have 4 function buttons running across the bottom of the screen, which will control different things depending on what mode you're in, and those will be displayed just above them on the screen itself. Hold down the 2 center buttons together to reset all your settings. Under that is a button to switch modes or lock your settings with a long push. Then there's this test button, which can also act as a shutter button if you're using this as a remote trigger for your camera together with the X1RC. Next to that is the select dial, which of course turns to make power adjustments or scroll through some on-screen options. There's also a set button in the center of that to confirm your settings. On the right side of that, we have a menu button, which of course takes us into the menus, and a magnification/TCM button. The magnification will bring up individual channels' settings full screen, and a long push will activate the TCM function, which we will get into later. Finally, there is a little status indicator lamp here, which seems to light up red to show when the shutter was released. Taking a look at the main screen here with all the groups displayed, up top you can see your channel settings, which can be changed by pushing the first function button. There's a camera icon to signify that this is successfully mounted on and connected to your camera, which actually would have been helpful with the X1T0, since the Panasonic hot shoes are a lot tighter and it's hard to tell if the X1 is all the way on. There's also a modeling lamp icon to show you that you've turned on the modeling lamps, which is done with the 4th function button. Your high-speed sync and rear curtain sync settings, which can be turned on with the 2nd function button. And an icon to indicate that sound is turned on and off, as well as your battery level indicator. The battery level may be inaccurate though, depending on which type of batteries you use. Along the left are your groups A through E, with their modes displayed next to them. You can select individual groups with these buttons on the left, change their mode with the mode button, or adjust their power settings with the dial, and those are constantly displayed right next to each channel. You can then click the set button in the center of the dial, or just take a shot. You can also choose the all option with your 3rd function button to adjust all the channels simultaneously. The 1st function button also has a secondary function, accessed with a long press, and that is to let you control the zoom of each group individually. Press it again to get back out to the main screen. If you zoom into an individual channel, you will see the zoom settings displayed on the bottom under the power settings. In this screen, you can still turn on the high-speed sync or rear curtain sync with the 2nd function button, and the 3rd function button will cycle through all the groups. Mod will turn the modeling lamps on and off, and unlike in the main groups page, in this mode turning the dial will change the power settings without having to push anything first. Back out on what I consider the main screen, when you have not selected either a group or the all function, pressing the mode button will take you to the multi-mode. In this screen you can turn each group on or off by choosing the group and pressing the mode button. Turning the dial will change power from minimum power up to a maximum of 1/4 power in full stops. Using the function buttons, you can change the times setting, which is pretty self-explanatory, and the hertz setting, which is how many times per second it will flash. Use these settings to calculate your ideal shutter speed by dividing the times by the hertz. This means 4 times at 2 Hz will give you a 2-second shutter speed. 10 times at 2 Hz will give you a 5-second shutter speed, and so on. So, getting back to the TCM function. It's a function that lets you take a test shot with TTL to get a base power setting, and then simply long press this button to apply that to manual settings, so you have consistent results or you can make further adjustments. This is nice because usually you can't see which power TTL flashed at, so if you want to switch over to manual, you have to get all your power settings from scratch or with a light meter. This makes it potentially a huge time saver. It is recommended to go into the custom function menu and choose the correct model of flash before using this, but I found that, at least for me, it works even if you don't do this, and even when you mix different flashes. This does work with multiple flashes simultaneously as well, but of course the quality of your TTL results will differ depending on your flash position and setup. TCM does also seem to work with non-Godox flashes when you're using the X1R receiver. The menu is much easier to use and figure out than the X1T's menu system, but a couple of these pages might still be a bit confusing the first time you see them. First up, we have the standby settings, and this will allow the Xpro to go to sleep when it's not being used after 90 seconds. It can simply be switched on or off, and if it does go into standby, pressing any button will wake it up, as well as a half press of your camera's shutter button. After that is the beep settings, again simply on or off. Next, the min option will let you choose the minimum power output value, and for most flashes this will be 1/128th, but on some more powerful flashes like the 8600, you can also choose 1/256th. Next up, you'll be able to set the backlight to turn off after 12 seconds, to always be off, or to always be on. Sync will control the function of your sync cord jack on the side of this. In lets the Xpro trigger a flash that's connected to it with the sync cable, and out lets it send a triggering signal to other remote controls and flashes. This is a little confusing, but the manual doesn't explain it any better than this, and I don't personally have a situation appropriate for trying it out since I'll pretty much always be using this with Godox flashes and strobes and I don't need the sync cable. On the group page, you can choose between 5 or 16 groups, with the latter being for use with Studio Flash and can only be used in manual mode. You can control the contrast of the LCD panel on the LCD page between settings of -3 and +3. The shoot settings are once again explained less than clearly in the manual, so I'll just read them off for you. One shoot only sends triggering signals in the manual and multi-modes when the camera is shooting. Full mode sends parameters and triggering signals when the camera is shooting, which is suitable for multi-person photography. An app only sends triggering signals when the camera is shooting, for when you control the flash's parameters by the smartphone app. My interpretation is for normal use, choose one shoot. For use with multiple cameras mounted with multiple Xpros both controlling the same lights, use full shoot, which sounds like it will sync your settings and changes constantly, so switching between cameras or photographers will get consistent results. App is for when you're using the app to control the settings, and the Xpro only for triggering the flash. Honestly, the names of each of these settings aren't even the same in different parts of the manual, and for me, one shoot has been working perfectly, so this is what I recommend unless you have some special setup. Next up, dist will let you choose the triggering distance, and this is an attempt to overcome an issue some people, including myself, had with the X1T. Often it wouldn't trigger the flash if you were too close. Here, you can choose a distance of 0 to 30 meters, or 1 to 100 meters, and while it's weird that you have to choose this, I think these options are going to be easy for most people to set and just leave alone with the 1 to 100 meter setting. ID will let you choose a wireless ID to help avoid interference, and you can set it to off or a number between 1 and 99. However, current Godox flashes don't have ID settings, so they recommend to set ID to off. TCM will bring you to the page I mentioned before, where you can choose between different flash models to work with the TCM function. The flash icon will work with the TT685 and V860 Mark II series speedlights, and the others are for the 8200, 8360 Mark II, and 8600. So that's about all there is to it. Overall, this is an extremely easy to use trigger, but there is a lot to it, so I hope that this helps get it all sorted out. As always, let me know if you have any questions or comments down below, give me a thumbs up if you found this helpful, and subscribe to see more in the future. As always, thank you for watching.